Well, good day, Lionhearts. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion, and today we are headed out to Villisca, Iowa. Some say that an event that happened out here in 1912 has made this house that we're going to go to one of the most haunted places in America. In 1912, an event happened here that was so horrific that it actually took the sinking of the Titanic off the headlines in local papers for the first time in 2 weeks. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. Well, unfortunately, when I got here, there's a sign that says closed for the season, even though online it doesn't say that, so guess we'll just do it from the outside and we won't get to tour today. The story about this is that in June of 1912, a family named the Moores, Josiah Moore's family, lived in this house, and they went out for, his wife had helped plan a church social. It was like a children's day. It was like a children's festival. So the whole family was there, and in the evening when everything wrapped up, about 9:15, they decided they were gonna start heading home. They had 3 sons and a daughter. Their daughter had a couple of friends that she was playing with, and the kids were afraid to go home alone in the dark. So their daughter asked the parents if the 2 girls could come stay at their house. And they came home and apparently went to sleep. Now the next day, their neighbor had noticed that nobody was out working in the yard doing any of the chores. At 5 a.m. there was nobody out here feeding the chickens or letting the chickens out of the coop or milking the cows or doing anything. So their neighbor kept watching, and 2 hours later at 7, when nobody was out moving around the house, she got a little concerned because back in those days people were out and about doing things first thing in the morning. So she came over and knocked on the door and nobody answered. And she also noticed, as you might notice now, that in all the windows there were coverings over the windows. So not being able to see in and kind of worrying for the worst, she called Ross Moore, the Josiah Moore's brother. And Ross came over and he kind of tried to look in, and as you can tell, he couldn't see in anything. And then went to the door, tried to get in the door, and it was locked. So he used his spare key and he went inside, and he noticed that there were 2 people in the master bedroom covered with a sheet, and there was blood on the headboard. And he immediately left, came out here and said, "We have a problem." And they called the local sheriff. He came out here and they entered the house. And as they walked around, they started to realize that every bed in the house had a dead person in there. The 2 guests were in one bed. The 2 little girls, Josiah Moore had called the family the night before and asked if they could spend the night, and they were allowed to, so they were now passed away in the bed. They said that it looked a little strange because there was some blood on one of the girls' legs, and one of the girls' underwear had been taken off and thrown under the bed, but when they did an investigation, they didn't find any proof that there had been any kind of abuse or anything. But what happened is, as they walked through, Sheriff started getting a little queasy seeing what he was seeing, because what had ended up happening was someone had used an axe and had taken all of the lives of the 6 people in this house, or actually it was 8 people in this house, had taken all 8 lives, and the axe was still in the house. It was cleaned off and left laying up against a wall. So the sheriff came out and he made a call and basically was letting his office know that they had a serious problem here, and that ended up getting put out publicly. So people that lived in the area, lived in the town and in the neighborhood, started coming over here, and as they're trying to do this investigation, people are literally coming in every door of the house, going room to room, looking at the bodies. And this was a pretty disturbing scene, because the wife of Josiah was the only one that had any proof that she had been hurt with the blade itself. She had basically, her face was disfigured and there were blade markings on there, but everyone else had been bludgeoned with the butt of the axe. And basically what they had done is killed the parents first, and then everyone else in the house, and then went back to the room of the parents and just kind of wailed on their face, like made it horribly disfigured. Now, during the investigation, this was a major problem because they had let, the sheriff had tried to stop it, but people were coming in and out of the house. He would throw a bunch of people out and then other people would come in. So before the coroner could even get here, and they had requested for dogs to come sniff out a scent that had to come by train. They had basically contaminated the scene before the dogs and the coroner could get here to investigate. Now, they didn't know who did it, and to this day no one has ever been charged with this successfully. They had gotten some confessions early on, but none of them held any water. And a couple of the theories were that, for one, that there was a Iowa senator who used to be the boss of Josiah, and that ended pretty badly, and that they were enemies. Josiah had went off on his own, started his own business, and anytime they passed each other, they wouldn't even speak. And some believe that that this senator had hired a hitman to come and do this, and what they think may have happened. There are all kinds of theories because, as I said, it's never been solved. They believe that someone waited in the house, in the attic, because they found 2 cigarette butts up there, and they think that they were waiting up there while the family was out at the festival, and that they may have poisoned or drugged some of the food to make them sleep harder. And so when they investigated this, they saw that there was no clear answer to who had done this, and they thought maybe the senator had done it. They thought they had found possibly who he hired to do it, but when they investigated that man, because that man later on, 2 years later, would be accused of killing his wife and newborn and mother and father-in-law, they thought it was him until he was able to provide a proof that he was working in Illinois. They found his pay stub. So then there was also a local traveling minister who was here that they said became obsessed with the case afterward and became involved, wanted to know everything about it, and he had been accused of doing it. And what's weird is when they came in the house, everybody was covered with, like, they had taken clothing out and just covered everyone's body, whoever had done this, as well as covered every mirror in the house and every window so no one could see in. Now, one of the people that they accused, or that they thought, that minister, they thought that might have done this, he kinda, at one point, said that he was staying close by and had looked at the house in the evening and had seen, he had seen something go on. He had seen a man with an axe come out and stand on the front porch. He had said that he, through a window, could see the madam of the house, Mrs. Moore, raise up in bed. So I don't know, they never really had. And then there was a local transient that they said they thought might have done it, because he also had something happen later on that he was accused of killing someone with an axe as well. And he had actually told his boss at that time that he was here in Villisca the evening it happened, and that he was worried he would get accused of it. And so he hopped back on the train and got out of town, because they said back in those days there were a lot of people trying to get day work off of train routes. And they also said that back in those days, where the trains ran, there were a lot of axe murders, and a lot of them shared the details to this, where the mirrors and the windows were covered and the bodies were covered as well. Now, this worried people so much that once this happened and they didn't know who it was that had done it, you couldn't even buy a gun or a lock anymore in this town because they were all sold out. So now, you know, everyone believes that this place is haunted. Every haunted ghost show, of course, believes that this has some haunted activity. And even the former owner said originally he didn't think that there was any activity. And then the longer he would be around it, he said he never personally felt some of the things that visitors here say they feel, where they say they can feel someone kiss them or someone poke them or something like that, or where they feel sick or anything like that. He said he never saw that, but he said what he saw were there would be things in certain rooms, there would be items they would have on display in rooms, and then the next day he would go in and the item would be moved to a different room. And I think it's widely believed that many people believe that it was the senator who had a hand in this, and that his connections helped him get off. But to this day, it is still a cold case. They still don't have an answer to it, and this is still one of the most visited haunted houses in all of the United States. Well, unfortunately, we won't be able to get inside it and walk around. I'd kind of like to see how it was all laid out, but to be honest, I have been in so many places that they consider haunted, and I have never felt them, so I'm not missing out on that. I really don't feel like I would feel anything in here as well, but you never know till you try it. So, and unfortunately, since it's not open this time of the year, we can't get in there. But from what I read online, they said that there's not much of a tour here. They said you kind of really need to know what happened here before you come, because they really kind of give you free reign of walking around the house, but as far as information and details, you don't get that much out of it. Well, my friends, we're going to call it a day. Unfortunately, we couldn't get in today, but hope you enjoyed learning. If you've never heard about this, about the Villisca Axe Murder House, we're going to call it a night. We'll see you all next time. Goodbye.